Hi everybody, Miles Watson here, and welcome to Team Writer, a panel celebrating the many different fanfiction writers here in the RWBY fandom, of which I am one. Now we have plenty of different writers here, so I'll lead us off and then we'll go into some of the others who are participating here. I have been writing a long-running series of RWBY fanfictions called RWBY Saga of Seasons, originally starting with Order of Seasons back in 2015, and I'm currently writing my second anthology book in said series. One of the biggest things I enjoy about writing in the world of RWBY is the fact that it is such a unique sandbox. It has elements of anime and western cartoons that make it a very unique and exciting sandbox to play with. And given the fact that the main show has more or less given just small tidbits about the world as a whole, it's given me a lot of chances to play with a lot of the more grand ideas that the show has never really touched upon. One of the biggest challenges that I've faced with writing the book series is that, well, sometimes I don't make the best decisions. One of my best friends actually came forward and said that she felt like she was nothing more than a side character, so I quickly course corrected and created a better idea out of this. Another challenge I sometimes face is the fact that I don't know where to take a story. I don't know how to build an idea, I don't know how to go in a certain direction, but one of the most exciting triumphs I've ever felt is whenever I've stumbled across the answer and I feel that rush of joy. It's just a lot of fun to really step in and experience that elation once you've figured out, yes, I've figured out the path I want to take the story and I know how to proceed, and I'm happy with this. Of course, I'm not perfect, no writer ever is. But I welcome the idea to try and continue to improve my craft and listen to critiques so that I can keep improving with each individual effort. We have a good amount of writers participating here, so I won't take too long. If you want to learn more about my work as a writer here in the RWBY fandom, I do have a video that's on the Summer of RWBY channel that's listed here. You can check it out for yourself and listen to my in-depth story talking about my entire series. If you'd like to read some of my works, you can find it here at either Writers Cafe or Archive of Our Own under these different titles that you can see here. Thank you so much for having me, Summer of RWBY, and now, let's take a look at some of the other amazing writers here in the fandom.
Hello again, or for the first time, this is Zel Rider here to celebrate the writing of RWBY and fandom. If asked what from the original show inspired me to write everything from fanfiction to analysis and original works, it would be two standout factors. The first is how RWBY utilise and subvert traditional archetypes, introducing characters and concepts that seem to fit a familiar archetype, such as the Tsundere rich girl or gloomy rebel, only to have early spikes in behaviour that indicate there is more going on, thus setting the stage for how each of these characters' arcs is rooted in shedding and growing beyond the archetype as opposed to losing themselves in it, as I often find with other series. Secondly would be their lack of double standards and when it comes to exploring topics like anger and violence and death that I again am often frustrated with in other media. RWBY is not a show with a couple of token girls, or one where 90% of the time the allegedly super badass woman gets locked in a box to have a fight with another woman because heaven forbid they get in a dust-up with a dude. Let alone the kind of violence they engage in, brutal knockdown melees with no one-on-one contrivances, and the general natural way it presents everyone's anger and trauma in a way that feels real but still flows with the story. Now to some questions supplied by our host. What about the original show got you interested? The Red Trailer was my first exposure to RWBY, and it was the blend of amazing action, music, and subtle world building wrapped up in a brutally efficient and subtly bloodthirsty red package. I have never seen anything quite like it, and frankly, still have not outside of RWBY itself. Did you wonder what it would be like if these characters lived in another world? I often dabble in AUs to such effect, and I am tinkering with some what-if videos to my channel. It is engaging to imagine how characters' arcs, themes, and personas would adapt or crack against the confines of another world or setting. Was it a desire to try your hand with creating your own stories in a pre-existing world? Oh, definitely. Remnant is a fantastic world to sandbox in because so much of it is wild land controlled by Grimm with vaguely defined borders and fallen civilizations everywhere. As far back as Volume 1, you could be crafting epic duels with pirates who ruled an island fortress via airships if you so desired, because who was to say what was happening beyond the borders of Vale? No one, because the world is so vast. A fact which also allows for battles over the fate of a simple town or city to truly feel like something larger for the sheer impact they could have, which it simply does not apply in a crowded world with thousands of cities. Or maybe you wanted to see what you could do with this world as opposed to the original writers. I don't find much joy in opposing the original writers. I love their world, story, and characters. However, there's a great joy in putting one's own spin on an idea or toying with a story of beloved characters only you can tell. RWBY would never be allowed to, nor have the motive to write an elaborate crossover with World of Warcraft, where RWBY ends up saving a forest troll village from Grimm and Sienna Khan finds herself in an alliance of convenience with the High Priestess Tyrande. What made you excited about creating a story in this world? As I said above, Remnant is a vast and varied world, but has a strong conceptual foundation. The creatures of Grimm serve to keep people mostly hemmed into strategic locations or encourage reliance on hunters or homegrown defenders to stay safe and stable. The freedom of this means one can create a myriad of cultures and historical remnants and set pieces to play in, such as a flying city of Moria that crash-landed centuries earlier in the mountains far east of Mountain Glen. It also serves to let characters carve out a chunk of the world as they see fit, be they silver-eyed warriors forming their own communities or a criminal cartel being able to smuggle goods across vast lifeless plains save for the Grimm. Remnant is a veritable untamed wilderness save for but a few city-states with loose grips on their territories and small towns and communities struggling to survive on a planet far older than they realise. Such potential is always magnificent to see explored for oneself or to see others do so, be they fans or the official writers. Thanks for having me on!
Hey there! I'm the Celtic Phoenix, most well known for my critical reconstruction series, Fixing RWBY, here on YouTube. I was a bit surprised to be asked to do this part of the panel, considering mention of me inside the fandom typically ends with torches and pitchforks. But I'm always happy to lend my voice to fellow fans of a series I love. RWBY is an absolutely fascinating property to write within. It's such a cobbled together mess of concepts and ideas, all of which clash and bounce off one another in weird, confusing ways. There are no less than 4 different power systems, from dust to aura to semblances to magic. There are archaic melee weapons merged into sleek modern firearms. Much of the world speaks to massive bouts of technological advancement, yet the levers of power go to kingdoms and councils, and there are strange peacekeepers called huntsmen who guard the gates from a relentless evil force. Charismatic characters with intricate backstories and histories that aren't all that well explained or explored or implemented. In many ways, this is RWBY's fatal flaw, but it's also one of its greatest boons. Between all of these disparate elements, there's a nebulous, almost intangible tether connecting them, a core that isn't very well defined, but can be if you so choose to shape it. So many combinations of elements that almost work if you just push them a little in one direction or another. And that's where the fandom comes in. Any writer can come into the RWBY fandom, look at the core, and shape it in their mind into a new form. You could rip out all the confusing, conflicting powers and make the setting mundane to focus on the characters. You could go all in on exploring the intricacies of the technology and the magic. You could reimagine the story from the ground up while keeping only the most core aspects intact. And somehow, it'd still all come out as recognizably RWBY. Or you could be crazy like me and try to tackle the creative problems head on, trying to explore a version of the show where the core was shaped a little more consistently, clearly, and deliberately. And the beauty is, while I call my critical reconstruction Fixing RWBY, it's not the be-all end-all as to how RWBY should be. Any other person out there could look at RWBY, see something that speaks deeply to them, and be motivated to tackle the problems and contradictions because some combination of elements is just too good to pass up. It's led to one of the most diverse fanfiction and art communities on the net, and for as much as I dream of a world where RWBY was a perfect show, I'm kind of glad that it's not. Through my history with it, through what I've done as a writer and as a project lead, I've met so many amazing people, fallen in love with so many different properties that inspired RWBY. I've grown as a person every single day because of it, and with a perfectly written show, I don't know if that would have been possible. I look forward to the future work that comes out of the fandom, and I'm going to be hard at work making my own. I want to do for people what RWBY did for me, inspire them to explore new ideas and concepts, to get outside of their comfort zones in some places, and most importantly, create new work that inspires even more people. I want us all to keep moving forward. Together.
Hi, I'm the Judgmental Critter, and if you know about me, you probably know that I'm pretty vocal about my critiques of the show. I've gotten plenty of comments along the lines of, if you don't like the show, why do you keep watching it? And honestly, no matter how negative or positive I feel about the events of the plot and characters, the thing that really captures my heart is the world of Remnant. The combination of dust, technology, and Grimm fills this world with endless potential. The universe of RWBY is infectiously fun, but the thing that I've always really loved is the idea of revisiting plot points with a new spin on it. RWBY as a show is a uniquely intricate web of ideas and plot points. So many big game-changing plot points, and I just can't help but wonder how things would have worked out if the events of the show got changed around. AU, or alternate universe, is one of my favorite concepts. What-if scenarios are always fun to speculate on, but unfortunately, every fandom also has its dark side. There's a vocal section of the fandom who seems absolutely against any sort of fanfiction or AU scenario in RWBY. I think these people just see RWBY as something that's too precious to be altered, even for just fun AU fanfictions. But the unfortunate side effect of this is that there are a lot of people who are too afraid to engage in this fandom. I've gotten tons of comments where people express how they wanted to make their own AU fanfictions, but were just too afraid of being attacked by that purist side of the fan space. I have a mini-series where my goal was to just fix some of RWBY's problems by changing as little of the show as I could, and even that series got people fired up. However, things have changed recently. I don't know what it was exactly. Maybe it's the fact that Volume 9 was really different from usual, taking place in the Ever After with the majority of the characters absent, and some people were getting antsy and wanted to see Remnant again. Maybe it's the fact Rooster Teeth shut down and people didn't want to see the show going away with it. But recently, from what I can tell, the fan space for RWBY has been more and more open and inviting than ever before. I think we're all finally becoming just much more open to fan ideas and changes. And it makes me very excited. I've been inspired to go ham and finally make that great big AU story I've always wanted to do. Changing up a bunch of characters, changing some of the lore and some of the world building, and honestly, it's been so fun. I find myself constantly sitting back and daydreaming about my own AU versions of these characters, because even though they might be different from what the show gave us, I still never would have been able to come up with these ideas without the foundation RWBY had built. So no matter what, no matter how good or bad the show might be, I'm still going to watch it, because I am so in love with and so inspired by the amazing characters and concepts in the world of RWBY.
Hello everyone, it's Vritzien. Happy to be here. My journey as a writer goes back to my elementary school days. In 4th grade, my class was tasked with writing a short picture book to be later published. My book, seen here, is one of my most cherished possessions. How could it not? It's what sparked my passion for storytelling, and always serves as a reminder of how far I've come as a writer. Skipping to the present then, the main project I've been working on now is a science fantasy series under the working title Potential. Its high concept being a heavily stratified society in which both the physical and non-physical characteristics and attributes of a person are measured, scored, and ranked for all to see. The results serve to determine that person's place in society. I bring it up here as RWBY has been a critical source of inspiration for this series. RWBY's been a huge part of my life since day one, and naturally has bled into my own work. I have also dabbled writing within RWBY canon. The most alluring reason for that has always been the more silent ways that RWBY would tell their story. More specifically, the soundtracks would fill my head with questions that I just couldn't help but want to answer and explore. As an example, the lyrics of Sacrifice convinced me that Cinder's backstory was somehow related to Summer Rose's death. I mean, come on. Truth will rise, revealed by mirrored eyes. It's just too perfect. I was never able to finish it though, unfortunately. Especially in those earlier volumes, the lore would change frequently, and I struggled to piece together a coherent story that didn't quite conflict with it. Now though, I'm too focused on my other projects in the present day to really have a chance to sit down to write some RWBY fanfiction. That said, RWBY still holds a special place in my heart, just more so with analysis on a technical level. For example, if you want to hear me elaborate on what I mean by the silent storytelling of RWBY, be sure to check out my contribution to Summer of RWBY, Saying Without Telling, RWBY's silent storytelling. Or if you want to hear me break down the show on a line-by-line level, go check out my From a Writer's Perspective series on Volume 8. Thank you all for listening, and thanks again to Semlix for inviting me.
A big thank you to all the writers who submitted videos and participated in the discussions of their experiences in writing in the world of RWBY. Before we go though, I would like to highlight a few quick writers who unfortunately couldn't make it, but I would still like to highlight their work and creations. First we have In Remnant's Time of Need by Justabossman on fanfiction.net. This is a story of how their fiancé and they themselves also died and somehow resurrected into the world of Remnant. Now they have to figure out how they are going to get home, but also how they got there in the first place, and maybe they will bump into some of their other friends along the way. You can check out this work and some of their others here at this fanfiction.net account. Thank you again to Justabossman for being willing to participate, and good luck with your future writing. Next up we have RWBY Amity, written by Doomalade, which is currently on hiatus but is an AU that has been 2 years in the making. It's a 50-chapter long epic following different characters over the span of decades as war and turmoil consume Remnant. The series does have some planned spin-offs such as Amity anthologies, but those will come much later down the line. As mentioned earlier, the project is currently on hiatus. Please check out their work here at this Archive of Our Own URL, and thank you to Doomalade for participating, and I wish you luck in your future writing. Next on the list, we have RWBY, Ashes of Eden by Thornloche on Wattpad. In this story, after suffering a defeat at the hands of Raven Bronwyn, Cinderfall begins to question her worth and purpose when a figure from her past forces her to confront her demons and change her perspective of the world. Thornloche has told me that this story is very much still in early stages of production and starting to get a feel for what the story direction is going to be. But I'm grateful for them sharing the story with me and giving me the opportunity to share with everybody. Thank you again for participating, and I wish you luck in your future writing. Lastly, before we leave, we have RWBY Rebuild by Arrow 118. As of right now, the project is still in development, but there is some amazing commissioned artwork that they have gotten made that showcases what they plan to do with the series that you can find here at this DeviantArt URL. Thank you again to Arrow 18 for being willing to participate, and good luck with your future writing. And of course, this only just scratches the surface of a lot of different writers and their creative works in a sea of amazing creators and writers here in the RWBY fandom. I'm just glad that I was able to shed a spotlight on a few of them here today, as well as have a few on to share their own experiences with their creative works. And it's so amazing to see the different inspirations that people can take from a show like this, both in terms of its story, its animation, its general ideas, and how it inspires so many people to create something of their own, be it in this world or another. Everyone will have their own opinions on RWBY as a show, but the best thing that we can do is take this amazing creation and build on it. Given the fact that the future of RWBY seems iffy at best, I think it's better now more than ever that we come together and share our creation so that we can improve as creators and create something magical of our own one day that maybe, just maybe, will inspire somebody else's creativity, just like Monty did with RWBY. Once again, thank you everybody who participated and were willing to have their work shouted out. And if you have your own work that you would like to highlight, please post it in the comments here. Share that you've created something and we would love to read it. Thank you again to Summer of RWBY for having me and allowing me to shed a spotlight on the amazing writers here in the fandom. Keep moving forward, my friends. May your heart be your guiding key.